Welcome to the Family Skeptical, Parenting Through Non-Belief.
We're a married atheist couple raising two wonderful, strange children. We ask big questions, dissect weird parenting moments, and examine how society ignores or misrepresents families like ours. If you're any stripe of non-believer who's involved in raising children, welcome. You are our people.
Our kids have heard all of our swears, but yours might not have. So be thoughtful if there are young people listening with you.
All right, moms. I know you got an agenda today.
I do. So this is the final episode where we're going to be discussing relax, it's just God, how and why to talk to your kids about religion when you're not religious. And since it's the final episode, I thought we would just sort of devote the whole episode to it.
Sounds good.
So this is in some ways the chapter of the book that I've been wanting to talk about the most.
Awesome.
So just to remind people, this is a book by Wendy Thomas Russell, and it's written for parents who are non-believers and who are having some questions and issues talking with their kids about religion. And we've discussed a lot of the sections before this. But this chapter is called Celebrating Secularism of Science and Sleeping In on Sundays. And it starts out by saying, this book has so far focused almost exclusively on the challenges of being a non-religious parent. But you know as well as I do, there is far more to celebrate than to lament. And so when I got to this chapter, I was like, yes, this is what I've been waiting.
And now I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
So, like I always say, it's complicated. And so I'll explain. So, it is a surprisingly short chapter.
Well, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, right? That's what they've been saying for 2,000 years.
Yeah, it is 8 pages.
8 pages. Do we at least get 8 things to be grateful for, or what? Like, what's happening here?
Okay, so there are basically only how many sections are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 sections. I'm going to read from the first one, which is called Feeding Our Secular Souls. And here she is talking about Elaine de Botton, Botton. Anyway, he's a British philosopher. So she writes, if you've not heard of him already, de Botton is a British philosopher and author who penned the 2013 book Religion for Atheists, a non-believer's guide to the uses of religion. In it, he makes a strong case for how atheists can borrow from religion's long history to connect with other non-believers and to deepen our reverence for life in general. Indeed, his book is a prescription for bringing rich meaning and purpose to the secular life. And she says he created the first atheist church, and then goes on to say, whether you believe that such a church setting is necessary, I would argue de Botton's message is particularly valid when it comes to parenting. After all, if rituals and holidays and the veneration of certain entities have worked for thousands of years as a way to inspire hope and bring a sense of purpose to young people, why should we not use those same tactics to inspire hope and bring a sense of purpose to our young people? Simply because we lack religious faith doesn't mean we don't long to bring meaning to our lives, right? If we define religion as something that helps us focus on what's important, gives our life meaning, inspires us to be better people, then it's fair to say that in a way we all have religion. So what's yours? Is it nature? Is it physics? Is it music, art, literature, writing, parenting, yoga, wine? Hey, no judgment. So
I have thoughts.
Tell me your thoughts.
The new agey equivocation of the colloquial usage of the word religion with what in North America predominantly Christian view of religion rubs me the wrong way. because religion for a lot of believers, in this case Christians, because they're the dominant faith in North America, is sure, you gain the community, it can give you a sense of purpose and hope, but it's also prescriptions to avoid eternal punishment. And it says that we're all essentially condemned to sin from the moment that we're born, and then only through accepting and venerating Christ's sacrifice are we saved from that horrible, unbelievably painful eternity. So, I mean, not to put too fine of a point on it, but saying wine is my religion or raising llamas is my religion, okay, that's fine. But I think the need to call it a religion is a flaw. And there's no reason to think of it as a religion. Like the idea of an atheist church, giant finger quotes here, or anything other than just characterizing it as, oh, look, it's an atheist meetup. Just call it, just why couch it in any of that? You don't need it. The people exiting faith have, in polling, they have more fears, less certainty. They can skew less happy or confident only because they have, in escaping religion, they have given up a community. That's what it's about. It's about community. It's not a religion. It doesn't require a church. You don't need to think of it as those things at all. It's just, do you have a community that lets you get out of your own headspace and get a broader perspective and see people who, like-minded folks who, with whom you can share a passion? And is that passion productive? Does it allow you to be proactive in your life and, improve your relationships, not just with others, but with yourself? If so, fine. Call it a religion, but it's not a religion. And equivocating those two terms, I think, is like, it cheapens both.
I had the same immediate response. And when I read the sentence, if we define religion as something that helps us focus on what's important, gives our life meaning, inspires us to be better people, then it's fair to say that in a way we all have a religion. It's like, if we're going to define a religion as everything that's good, we should all have a religion. And it's like,
it's definitional nonsense. It's like,
but that's, that's,
it's like defining God. What is God? God, like God is faceless, timeless, immaterial. Why? Because it's God. It's gobbledygook. Like, it doesn't get you anywhere. It's just, you're just using it to make yourself feel better about your decisions. And I don't know, like I know language is powerful, but there's also a responsibility we have, right? And that responsibility in communicating with each other is to make sure that we're not just like arbitrarily defining things into existence, because then we're going to be talking past each other. Because then you're saying, oh, what's your religion? Head cheese. And the other person is a Muslim. And they're like, what does that mean? Like, you're going to be talking past each other until the person who calls their head cheese religion accepts that it's not actually a religion in a strict sense. It's just a preference for a psychological and social outlet through which they gain personal meaning.
And so that was my take. And so but okay. So though,
to be fair, a head cheese religion I could get behind.
Yes. But so that was my take for a good month after reading the book.
Okay. What changed your mind?
So I was going about my business. And then I remembered that, I sort of realized I was an atheist all in one moment. And then it was kind of a long process to figure out what that really meant to me and how that was going to play a role in my life. And one of the big things that had an impact on me was actually the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. That series presented ideas and philosophies that were very helpful to me. And a big part of sort of my journey was that though I knew I was not religious, I was very worried that I might be wrong for a while. And some of the ideas in those books gave me great comfort and kind of helped me work through some of those feelings.
Care to share your favorite one?
Oh, gosh. I was trying to think about that.
Because there are so many. Like I go back to, the whale changing, having a conversation with itself in the void as it's falling to its demise. There are certain ways that series tackles the nature of self and our place in the enormity of the universe, and ultimately how fruitless everything can be if you look at it a certain way, but how meaningful it can be if you look at it like from the opposite perspective. That, I find myself having a hard time thinking of like what my absolute favorite one, like Restaurant at the End of the Universe, having your dinner talk to you about what part of its body it thinks you should eat based on its current diet.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like, wow.
Yeah, it's hard to pick out a single thing because I really think it's like the ethos of all the books. It's exactly what you said. I think they use humor to give yourself a sense of perspective, mm-hmm. both about how unimportant you are.
Yeah.
And how that doesn't have to take any beauty away from your life. I think it's those two juxtaposed.
Well, it's absurdity. It's like the highlight of the best, in my opinion, the best British humor is that it's absurd. It's like Monty Python. You can, or Blackadder. That degree of absurdity allows you to reflect on things in a really like unusually meaningful way, because that absurdity cuts to the core of, our shared experiences, because we all have those moments in our lives where you just have to laugh, right? And so you apply that to as many situations as possible. And, coming back to the book in question, looking at.
Well, no, but wait.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Wait.
Never mind. Sorry.
Before we come
back. I'm derailing. It's my fault. I'm sorry.
You're derailing. So, and also I will say my favorite quote from the whole book is a very, very small section that is sort of apropos of nothing else. And I don't even remember, I think it's Ford Prefect who meets the person, could be Arthur Dent, but Ford meets an astrologist. An astrologist, and says, well, astrology is...
Astrologer.
Astrology is totally not true. And she says, yeah, but any system of thought applied to a problem can bring insight. And that was so useful for me to think about a lot of things, mm-hmm. because there's a lot which really helped form my belief that it is fine to care about things that aren't true, as mm-hmm. long as you are honest with yourself that they're not true.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, I like tarot readings. I know that it's just random what cards come up. But what I like about it is that if there's somebody insightful doing the reading, mm-hmm. and if it puts you in a thoughtful state of mind, it might make you think about your own life in a way that you wouldn't have. A card comes up, and even though it's random, it makes you think, oh, what's going on in my life that applies to this concept?
Sure.
And because of that, it can give you insight.
Just don't go like taking out a second mortgage to put, all of it on a lottery number that you get from a tarot reading.
Yeah, definitely not, because it's not true.
Definitely not. Right. No, but that's one of the reasons I lean consequentialist on it, honestly, like not to sound like a total like newbie philosophy dweeb, which I probably come across as, because I don't know much about it except what I've read to help me understand better what I believe. But one of the reasons why I lean towards being consequentialist is because, looking at what actions come out of beliefs. Like I've said before, and I'll probably say many times over the course of this podcast, that like I care more about what a person does as a consequence of their beliefs rather than what the belief is. Like, you could be a Christian and, say, oh, stewardship of the earth, I'm going to start a company that plants trees. Or you could be a Christian and like hang your hat on, all the rabbinical prohibitions in the Pentateuch and start like throwing rocks at people for mixing fabrics. Like what is the consequence of the belief that you have? And so if you look at something like, let's say again, because again, North America, Christianity, vis-a-vis what they're talking about in the book we're discussing here today, you can gain benefit from reading the Bible, because a lot of people have thought deeply about these things through the course of time, and the Bible has yielded some philosophical insights rather than just its, prohibitions or the mystical elements and, sin and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I don't know if that's where you were going.
No,
with, but
so
that's sort of
so this is what I remembered though. So freshman year of high school,
mm-hmm.
I wrote a series of short stories where one of the characters took the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and made a religion based on them.
Did you ever tell me this? This is really cool.
I don't know. And wrote out even a list of commandments based on the book.
Do you remember what the commandments were?
I so wish I did.
Okay.
I don't. And it was
the sacrament of a really hot cup of tea.
Yeah. And it was a really helpful exercise for me. So
okay, cool.
It did give me pause, because I read this chapter with such frustration. Mm-hmm. And then a month later, I was like, but I did that. Like I independently did that. I made up a That's religion so cool. As part of my sort of process of going through these things. So I feel like there is something there. I mean, there's a reason we've made up religions throughout time. Like this is clearly something that is fairly basic to the human condition. Mm-hmm. So I just had to ponder that because it was really helpful. Like that was a really helpful exercise to me. And I knew it wasn't a real religion. Like I said it within a fictional story, right? Mm-hmm, and right. I never tried to practice it, really. Like that wasn't the point of it. But writing it out was helpful. So I wonder if this is a stepping stone to kind of figuring out your own feelings about what's important in the universe as you decide that you're not going to follow established religious practices for those things.
How familiar are you with the tenets of the Satanic Temple?
I think I'm pretty familiar.
Like, because, for those of you out there who don't know the Satanic Temple, they're skeptical atheists per their own definition, and they don't worship the devil. They don't think that any supernatural entities exist. The devil is essentially Satan is essentially a metaphor, and they have tenets that we can link below, so you guys can check it out if you want easily. But you can find for yourself very easily on their website. Their tenets, like the Ten Commandments, they sort of ape the Ten Commandments, but at the same time they're much more robust, let's say, because there are certain things that you would expect the Ten Commandments to prohibit or warn us against that, they fall down on. And the first half of the Ten Commandments are solely related to, us worshiping God and God's, ego, which is kind of weird, but whatever. I encourage you all to check that out if you haven't already or aren't already familiar with it. Because that's like a working real world example of this, where it's not the worship of an entity. It's not a religion based on supernatural events or supplication or sacraments like that. It's, the veneration of what we can do as people when we set our minds to it, and how we can properly practice justice and fairness, in as many venues in our lives as humanly possible.
It also made me think of the show Breeders.
Okay. In what way?
Breeders is also a British show about two parents. And I forget if it was the first season or the second season, but spoilers, one of the kids has a health issue. And the father, who's played by...
It's first season, right? With Luke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Martin Freeman?
Yes.
Yeah, by Martin Freeman, is not religious, but he's incredibly scared for his son.
Wow. And Arthur Dent 2 times in the same episode.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So he's very scared for his son, Luke.
But he's not religious. So he can't pray to God.
This. Yes. Thank you for bringing this up.
And so he prays to David Bowie. And it was another moment where I was like, yes, I totally get that. Did he actually think David Bowie was up there and going to protect his son? I don't know, but it was so emotionally true to me. That in hard moments we need something. A lot of people need something.
Do you think it was the need to believe that he was there, or do you think it was just his need to talk to somebody whom he thought would be listening? Like that's at least that was my experience, and some of the experiences of people that I've talked to who have exited religion, where the concept of prayer eventually revealed itself to be, sure, yeah, you're just talking to yourself, but the process of speaking out loud these things that are really bothering you, like talking to yourself, like working these things through, has value. And what better person to listen than this creator deity who is this omni being who can provide the things that you're looking for potentially. But even if you take all those qualities away from whatever it is you're talking to, yourself or David Bowie, I think there is real value in not holding those things in and just being lowercase s, colloquial stoic, where you just suck it up, buttercup, and you're not supposed to let those things out because you're going to make it harder on the family if they see you breaking down. But that goes back to us talking in an earlier episode about being emotional around our kids. I think there's a value in being openly emotional in times of crisis. I think there's a value in talking these things through. And part of what we lose when we exit religion is that built-in, that baked-in community that listens and will gladly speak their own truths alongside you, the things that are worrying them out loud, right alongside you. And in a communal setting, that can be a very powerful feeling of security and hope, right?
Yeah.
So leaving religion, in losing that, we look for other ways. We look to head cheese clubs and wine clubs and book of the month clubs, I suppose.
Well, that's what I wanted. So, and we got, the other section in this is about atheist prayer. So to me, the issue, she is talking about an interesting, real thing. But to me, it is not what's good about being a non-believer. It's just part of the journey of being a non-believer for some people. So I was curious, like, if you were writing this chapter,
Yeah.
what would you have put in it? Because I feel like it's basically empty.
So the chapter is about specifically the things that we should
The things to celebrate.
Be grateful for, right? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
The things to celebrate as an atheist. Well, okay. First and foremost, if you don't already have personally, and I'm talking to everybody who's listening, if you don't already have a daily practice of expressing gratitude, even if it's just on your own, expressing gratitude for things in your life, doesn't have to be everything, giant litany every single day, but just like every day you express gratitude towards a few things in your life on a rotational basis, then you are really missing out. And so my first thing would be celebrating that we can be grateful for things that we do, knowing that we do them, and that they are things that we do alongside, in conjunction with, or for other human beings, regardless of whether or not there actually are deities that look favorably upon us doing so. That the good things that we do are ephemeral in some cases, but in some cases, they yield lasting change, right? The suffragettes, for instance, on a moment-to-moment basis, were struggling for something they weren't sure would ever come to pass. And, getting abused and harassed obviously was a huge challenge to them. And those moments of strife and their moments of hope were ultimately ephemeral until, was it the 16th, 19th? Which amendment was it? 19th Amendment was passed. So that is now lasting change. That is something that you can celebrate beyond just the wins and losses in service of a greater good.
Yeah, that makes me think.
But gratitude.
But I once saw this magazine, and it was called Angels Magazine, and it was supposed to be stories of real angels.
Ooh.
And it was very confusing.
Do you remember any?
Oh, well, not super well, but what I remember is that I was so confused by the stories because most of them were like, I was in trouble and this person showed up and they helped me out.
Oh, yeah.
And then something weird happened, which made me think maybe they were an angel. And the weird thing was never that weird.
No.
and I was always confused because I was like, isn't it nicer to just think that there was like a really nice person who helped you when you were in a time of need
and like, inspired you to do the same thing for somebody else, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think one of the things that I often think about is I think as humans, we are all complex. And more than we are willing to admit, we are all capable of doing really horrible things. And because of that, it makes it all the more amazing that we often don't do horrible things, that we are often amazingly kind to each other, and that I can just appreciate that without kind of any baggage attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Another big thing to me is also what we talked about before, which is just that I am free to find knowledge anywhere.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, I can find great ideas in the Bible. I can find great ideas in Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
And that freedom to evaluate everything individually on its merits and to take wisdom wherever it comes from just feels like a daily gift. Yeah.
Oh no, for sure. Escaping dogma is definitely a big plus when it comes to leaving a religion. But yeah, like aside from those two, I like because they're such big umbrella concepts. Because I'm not gonna. I don't think I'd be celebrating. Okay, let me back up a second. There could be, for on an anecdotal basis, individually people celebrating not being a part of an abusive situation in their specific religious setting.
Yeah.
Like if they were involved in a religion that was harming them and encouraging them to do harm to others or both, then escaping that religion and freeing themselves from that yoke is definitely something to be celebrated. But that's more like on a personal level, and not everybody, not every non-believer would celebrate that, because some people are born non-believers. They're born into secular households, and they never consider religion. They view them all as myths and yada yada yada. And so the needle is never moved in their cases, and so that wouldn't be something that they would consider to celebrate. So I suppose we could put that into a second column of things that some non-believers would celebrate, but you wouldn't necessarily celebrate because you're a non-believer. It'd just be because of your own personal situation.
Well, I think that gets at something. I think you do gain something by not having to put people up on a pedestal. Does that make any sense?
Expand on that.
So in a lot of religions, there are certain people who are given authority to make decisions for the group. And that can be as big as like the Pope, or is it the prophet in Mormonism?
Yes.
What do they call it? The
yes.
prophet.
Yes.
And a lot of religions that gets parsed down and down and down, where, there are other sort of lower levels. And I think it is, frankly, just like good not to have that, to have everybody able to be questioned. And also, when one of those people who are up on a pedestal lets you down, to not have the extra weight of meaning of what that might mean behind it. If there's somebody who I think is really amazing and they end up doing something very hurtful or not thoughtful, in my life, they're just a human. And that's unfortunate, but I know that all humans make mistakes. And I don't have to question everything they ever told me or everything I ever learned from them because of that mistake. But if you're told that that person is acting for God or something bigger that's supposed to be more all-knowing, that can be a much, I think, more traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, another thing that you can be grateful for are the little things, like all of the things that happen to you. Like, I guess this goes back to daily gratitude practice, but you can be grateful for having, another day alive to continuously try to do better at various parts of your life. You just don't have to. Now, you know what? Scratch all this, because it's going to come back to, you don't have to ascribe it to a god or your worship of a god for giving it meaning, or for that deity granting you the power to do this, that, or the other thing, or giving you the gift of whatever. It just comes back to, we do these things because we're social, sentient animals, and thus we don't want to die. And we want to craft a society, ideally, in which as many people are helped and as few people as harmed as possible. And thus do we progress towards some, unknown future. And so maybe just scratch my intention to add on to it in that regard, but maybe in thinking about it, we can be grateful to not know what the ultimate end goal of humanity is. Like, I think that is really inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
that we don't know or have any way of knowing how far we're going to go. We have no way of knowing what's ultimately going to maybe be our collective demise as a species. We just don't know. And one thing that I found in talking to a lot of especially fundamentalist theists is that they have a need to know. It's almost like they feel owed answers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why one of the reasons apologetics exists is to buttress those answers that they would give with philosophical arguments. I'll be very charitable and call them just philosophical arguments. But they're ultimately a response to the need to defend something against an attack, their beliefs. And those beliefs exist because they have a need to attach themselves to those beliefs. Like I don't believe, like I've said before, I don't believe that we choose beliefs. I believe that beliefs are a byproduct. And so whatever it was in their life that led them to believe that, now they're looking for ways to justify it perpetually.
And I think that creates more fun, because if not knowing can be a place of exploration instead of fear.
Yeah.
Like that's just, to me, like a much happier.
It's Star Trek. Like, where are we going to go?
Yeah.
We're going to keep progressing. Where are we going to go? Who knows? It's like the traveler in Next Generation, right? And eventually, like, he and Wesley scoot off to become fifth dimensional beings or whatever. It's just like we don't know what the end result is going to be. I was about to say goal. There is no goal. It just, things just keep happening and changing. And eventually the organism completely dies off or doesn't. And so I'm hopeful in thinking that we won't die off. And, the sci-fi nerd in me wonders, in the year 10,191, what will be possible?
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say, I feel like so many theists assume that all atheists venerate science to the exclusion of everything else.
Don't forget Richard Dawkins. We all worship Richard Dawkins.
And I just want to make it clear, like, I think science is super cool.
We have needlepoint pictures of Richard Dawkins hanging in our bathrooms.
Well, yeah.
I mean, only the sexy Richard Dawkins with the blue steel pout.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But like, just to say, like, I'm somebody who thinks science is really cool and has given us amazing answers to a lot of big questions. But like, that's not where I go for my sort of inspiration. And like, I wouldn't call that my church, right?
Well, it's considered scientism when you have a belief that science will discover all the answers, as it were, like capitals, all caps, all the answers, right? But we have no way of knowing that either. But that is just another example of how people, not just theists, people, it's a human desire to not live in a state of uncertainty. But once you let go of that, if you have the capacity to do so, once you let go of that need to avoid uncertainty like the plague, you free yourself from so much. Like, it's okay to say, I don't know. And it's okay to always say, I don't know about the same things, and to never have answers, to die with the same answer that you gave to a proposition as, when you were first presented it in your, youth. It's just, it is okay. It is all going to be okay.
Yeah. So to me, this is
that's Douglas Adams thing, I guess, too, right there, is like it's okay. You put the little sensor things in the cup of tea, and the infinite improbability drive works just fine. You don't know where it's going to take you. You hope it's going to take you where you need to go, right? Like the room of requirement. But it does its own thing, and that's okay. Yeah. You don't need to have all the answers ever. And not knowing all the answers is not a character flaw.
To wrap up this book, though, can I read you what I believe is the most absurd thing in the entire book?
Please do.
That comes from this chapter?
Please do.
I wanted to believe it was a joke, and I read it 3 times, hoping to see sarcasm in it.
Okay.
But I apologize to Wendy Thomas Russell if I missed it, but I don't think it's meant to be sarcastic. So, talking about secular church, then she goes on to holidays. And she says, religious holidays are meant to celebrate or remember an important religious event or person. Yada, yada, yada. Why not look for what's important to you and build a holiday celebration around that? Birthdays are no brainer, but maybe make a big deal over Martin Luther King Jr. Day or Darwin Day, or celebrate the founding of your city or the birthday of your favorite philosopher, or try celebrating any of these widely known holidays. Inventor's Day, Earth Day, DNA Day, Honesty Day, Astronomy Days, International Friendship Day, Constitution Day, World Vegetarian Day, World Vegan Day, Human Rights Day. Okay.
Why not Festivus?
Yes. Okay.
She didn't list Festivus.
So the big holidays are big holidays for a reason. The big holidays celebrate important moments in the year, regardless of religion.
Not.
Well, no,
Easter.
Yeah, spring.
Aid.
Spring. Harvest.
Sure,
and almost every
it's been co-opted.
Yes, almost every religion has some festival of light in the middle of winter because it's dark, right?
Yes.
Like those are all of our days. We don't, because we are atheists, doesn't mean we have to celebrate like Secretary's Day.
I mean, secretaries make the world go round. Shout out to secretaries.
They are the best, but we don't need to give up those big days because they were big days to start with, and then religions took them.
Yes, some, but not all. It isn't like, it isn't like we're going to be looking to Passover, for instance, right, as an equinox day.
Yeah, there's certainly some, but I'm just saying that it felt like
the blanket dismissal of all theistic holidays and
not recognizing that so many of them are an amalgam of lots of different celebrations from a lot of different religions.
Or just insisting that non-believers don't practice or don't celebrate those holidays because of family traditions, because of the various emotional, psychological, culinary, right, recreational aspects to those holidays. Like Christmas is a time of cookies.
Yes.
It's a time of movies and beloved tales. It's a time when we can celebrate each other and we can celebrate goodwill towards each other, which is truly something we should do every day of the year, just like Scrooge says at the end. But it's a time when we can sort of refresh that sensibility, right? Like we don't, like you said, Easter, eggs, bunnies, those are fertility rite icons, right? So we can just say, hey, oh man, Easter is such a cool holiday. I love celebrating the coming of spring. Yep. Let's do an Easter egg hunt. Because an Easter egg hunt has just zero to do with, I was about to drop an F-bomb. Sorry, everybody. It has zero to do with Jesus getting scourged by the Romans and then hung up to die. So
it's hard to draw a direct connection. So
it is. Maybe there was a bunny bouncing around, Gehenna that they saw. Or like, hey, look, let's put a bunny in the Bible. I don't know. Maybe that's in the Apocrypha. I don't know.
Yeah. So, and if you don't want to celebrate those holidays, obviously, totally cool.
Right.
Do your own thing. But I'm not giving them up. They're mine. It's the
Yeah.
seasons.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care.
I love Christmas so much. I love the Christmas season. I love it.
Yeah.
And I look forward to it every year. I look forward to all the ways we celebrate it. I love the smell of the cookies baking. I love the smell of the pine needles. I love the gift giving. I love especially like the like the 19th century secular carols. Man, the Brits knocked it out of the park on all those. Um, I love it all. I just don't go to church for it. And I don't think that I'm celebrating because Jesus literally was born on December the 25th. Because, naturally, that's when all the shepherds are hanging out at night with their flocks, unsheltered in the middle of winter. That's definitely that's what happens.
Yep. And I keep the Christmas lights up until it's starting to be light close to dinner time.
You do. You do that. You do that holiday light thing far longer than I would, given my druthers.
Yeah, but I like it.
So there, look, two
I like
secularists.
lights.
Total disagreement on how we celebrate a religious holiday.
I know. All right. So that was really fun.
Thank you for sharing that book with us, moms. I would not have read it otherwise.
Yeah, no, we're going to figure out what to do for the next one. But we'll be back with that soon. So quickly, thank you to Jonathan Zalbin and First Frame Music for the music for the show. And we look forward to talking to you in the next episode.
And so that wraps up another episode of The Family Skeptical, where nothing is sacred except for our kids.